Hello and welcome everyone to Gamestate episode 12. It is Monday, October the 8th, and today we are going to be talking about the beginning of Innistrad Return to Ravnica Standard, and also the Star City Cincinnati Legacy Open, and a few other things that may crop up. I am your host, Adam, a winner is you, Ragsdale, and tonight we have the Standard crew. Glenn Jones, Event Coverage Coordinator for Star City Games.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Stephen Flavel, Poker Pro and Magic Enthusiast.
Yes.
And Cedric Phillips, Professional Magician.
Good evening.
So the first thing we're going to go to is the Star City Cincinnati Standard Open, because that is the most exciting thing, and we always go where it is most exciting. The first question is, how seriously, just how seriously, should we take the results of the very first Standard event in this format? And for such a question, we will go to the master of seriousness, Cedric Phillips.
I'm so serious. So serious. I think we should take it kind of serious. Sort of serious, but I don't think that this sets the format or anything like that, honestly. I think there are some things to take note of here. There are some things to be built upon. And I think that's as far as you take it with you. For example, the blue-white-red control deck that won the tournament by Todd Anderson, I think is something to be cognizant of moving forward when you're building an aggressive deck to beat it or building a control deck to win the mirror. However, that being said, I don't know if that deck is great. I don't know if it's bad, but it's something that you should definitely be paying attention to moving forward. The same can be said with the zombies decks as well. I think these decks performed up to expectation. I don't think that we were going to have. I think 3 is a pretty good representation of how many I felt were going to be in the top 8. I didn't think there was going to be a mass like ownage, like Delver would perform. But I think overall, like when you see results from tournament number 1, you kind of want to have an idea of like what like the awesome people are playing, like Todd Anderson, like Jerry Thompson, all that stuff, and then just kind of look at everything else around you. Like look for a rogue deck that you didn't expect to do well, like 4-color Reanimator. Take a look at how they've built their blue, white, red control decks. See what kind of things you can take away from that, what you like, what you don't like. A card that stands out to me, for example, is Azorius Charm in multiples. So just stuff like that. Don't let this be the end-all, be-all, but don't ignore it either.
Alrighty. Glenn, do you have anything to add to Cedric's seriousness? You need to unmute yourself before you can add.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. I don't really have a lot to add. I think that Zombies was one of the decks everyone expected to see coming in, and there were a lot of different versions of it. Obviously, we saw like 3 really different ones in the top 8, and the rest of the metagame was just, people trying out new decks. We had a variety of the basic, like, Miracle Control deck just moved into Standard again, like, all that good stuff. I mean, I think there were a lot of fringe decks. I don't think we'll be seeing most of the decks that we saw in the top 16 once the environment actually is, like, underway.
Alrighty. Steven, bring us home.
Bring us home. All right, so I did a bunch of math because one cool thing about the Star City Games Open Series is that we have a lot of live standard events to look at. When I looked at the standard events over the last year and just looked at how Delver performed, and like nobody played Delver for the first month of that standard format. Then it showed up in like Illusions, then there were like the Esper Spirits, then there was the blue-white Delver deck. We had mono, blue wizards. Blue-red Delver was actually a thing before blue-white Delver. It may surprise you to know. And in the end, Delver ended up being like 26% of the top 8 decks throughout however many Star City Games Open Series Standard. Looking at this format, I definitely like 100% do not see the winning deck representing this top 8. And I don't think we will for a little while because the format is so... It's a moving target right now, basically. I think coming into week 1, everyone knew that Zombies was a deck and had cards for it. And so I've seen plenty of Zombies decks and plenty of decks built to beat Zombies. I think Celestia Aggro is very much like this is an aggro deck I can play, which does pretty well against zombies. And the control decks and the mid-range decks, especially the Jund mid-range decks, I think that they are like, let's beat the zombies deck, which is sort of defining the format. I think that something a lot of people are missing in evaluating zombies as the best deck or the deck to beat is that zombies existed hand-to-hand with Delver in our last standard format, and Delver presented serious problems for control decks to deal with and mid-range decks to deal with as well, which are not presented anymore in this format. So if somebody wants to beat the aggro decks in this format, I think it's fairly easy to beat a zombies deck. Whereas if you're sitting down to build a control deck and you have to beat zombies and Delver, I think you're just going to pound your head into the wall for a very long time. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the format develops. I'm not sure that zombies can put a roof on this format. We may see like some very, very high decks, some like 15 turn draw go mirrors. I don't know though. I don't know. That's sort of where I expect it to go, and we'll see how it develops, I guess.
All right. Now that we've talked about what you should and shouldn't care about, let's talk about what actually did happen at the Standard Open in Cincinnati. The event was, of course, won by one Todd Anderson playing blue-white splash red control, a list also played by other notable players such as Brad Nelson and Jerry Thompson. I don't know if anyone else was running the deck, but there were a couple other notables playing the deck, so he was not entirely alone. And the top 8 also contained 3 zombies decks, 2 Jund mid-range decks, a green-white aggro deck, a mulch-based graveyard deck, and the aforementioned control deck. I believe that's 8. Yeah, I think that's 8. So that was the top 8. Let's talk a little bit about what did show up. The first thing I want to touch on specifically is the zombies that have been mentioned briefly before. Obviously, this was one of the most well-popularized decks coming into the inaugural event of this standard season. How do you guys think it did? Are you impressed? Are you unimpressed? And what do you think it's going to do going forward? Glenn, I will start with you.
Sure. I think we saw a lot of different flavors, which was interesting. I kind of expected I expected one to do better than the others, basically, because I figured they'd all show up and the environment would just be correct for one of them versus being correct for the others. And instead, we wound up with 3 pretty different versions. Joe Bernal's like black-red bump of the night hyper aggro deck was like much more of a burn deck than a traditional like zombie deck. Then we had like the Jund deck, which was very slower zombie deck with Dreg Mangler and just really able to grind it out. And then the green-black deck, which I think was what we most expected when we first saw a lot of Troll Spoiled. So that kind of was like the full range as far as the zombie decks go. And generally speaking, I think that I'd rather be on the more aggressive heel, at least in the first weeks. Like, if you remember back to when Innistrad first hit, I think that open was won by like mono red fighting against mono red splashing Wolf Run in like the finals or something like that. So, you know, it's always good to just be playing the really hyper aggro deck that will annihilate you when you stumble in the early weeks because people don't have the right answers. They're running spells that aren't that great. I mean, you saw how the blue-white deck basically just had to splash Pillar of Flame in order to survive these matchups because that's just what's necessary. So I wasn't surprised to see it do well because it's the deck that has the most reach and can present the most threats. And that's just where you want to be in week 1 a lot of the time when people are trying to do cute things instead of good things because they haven't actually figured out what is good versus cute, if that makes sense.
Alrighty. Steven, you get to roll out next.
All right. Yeah, I think zombies is very bad. I'm just not impressed by the deck very much at all. It's a very vanilla, aggressive deck with a little bit of resilience and reach to it, basically. And I think it's fairly easy to beat. And I think that, like, you're seeing a lot of people put different cards in zombies and playing different colors and etc. I'm not sure how much of a difference that's actually making. One of the huge things that I see as an obstacle for zombies as far as progressives is that it doesn't have like a ponder. It doesn't have the card selection engine that you saw in Delver, where Delver could make the last 6 or 7 cards matter a ton because it could draw them. And zombies doesn't get to do that. So you can slant it more towards burn, you can slant it more towards creatures, and I think against most decks, that's going to be a pretty negligible difference. But you cannot play like 4 bullet cards and consistently draw them. So ultimately, those last few cards are not quite as big a deal. I don't know. I think that like pod zombies is where I would want to be if I could do that in this format. Some sort of zombies deck which had a real late game and some real resiliency, and I'm not quite seeing that from zombies right now.
All right, Cedric, I know you like punching a man. Is this where you would want to be?
I've been known to attack a day or two, and after looking at these results and looking over the deck list, I like Joe Burnell's deck the best as far as zombies is concerned. Maybe just my favorite deck in the format at this point. Mostly because I like against a deck like blue, white, red, it seems like it would just mop up these green, black zombies decks, like with their wraths and all this stuff. Because like even though these creatures are very good for the zombie deck, like they don't have any reach really, and that is of like the utmost concern to me. Like yes, Lot of the Troll is a very good card, you know, Cackler, and it's 1 mana, 2 power guys are all very good. But green doesn't provide any reach for the deck, so once they stabilize, like you're just like, oh, here's another guy. I hope I can get you with this guy. And then if you can't get him with this guy, then you just die. And like these blue, white, red control decks or control decks moving forward are just going to have answers to guys because that's just the thing that they're going to answer. Versus they don't really have great answers to burn that I can think of off the top of my head. You know, like they don't have like a timely reinforcements to get their 6 life back. Like yes, it's very possible that they can move towards Sphinx's Revelation, which is the blue white X gain X life, draw X cards, instant speed card. They can move in that direction, but as it stands, they're not in that direction right now. So I look at these, I look at like these zombies deck lists, and of the 3, I really like the red black one because it's just like very unforgiving. You only have to deal like 8 points of damage with your creatures. With like these 2 power 1 mana guys, and like the rest of the game you can just burn them and just keep burning them, and there's nothing they can do about that because they're basically a board control deck and they don't really have a great way to get their life back. And they have all these ways to control creatures with Detention Sphere and Jace's +1 ability, and you know they have Wraths and all this great stuff, but outside of controlling creatures, like once you start going upstairs to the dome, I don't really know like what they can really do about that, and I think that that's a better way to go about trying to kill someone with zombies right now. It is likely that like green-black is better than red-black and like a zombie mirror because like the green-black zombies fight better, so I could see that being an issue for like this red-black version. But I don't know, if I had to choose one of the 3 zombie decks that made the top 8 here, I would definitely play this red-black version, like expecting, like going to the tournament knowing that I have to beat someone of Jerry's quality or Brad's quality or something like that, and I know that those guys are going to play the control deck and not the aggressive deck. I would rather be on this side.
So are you saying you want to be the thing that goes bump in the night? Is that your stance?
I certainly want to be the thing that goes bump in the night.
All right, good.
Absolutely.
What do you think about Devil's Play? Devil's Play in this deck against the super high control decks, yeah. Because I know it sounds really stupid because it's an aggro deck and how you get the mana, but that was a huge thing in Innistrad Block Constructed, which is making up a lot of this card pool, was that there were very high controlling decks, and then you would just play Devil's Play in your aggro deck, and the game would go long enough, and they didn't actually have an answer to it. You just deal them the last 11 or something.
If you want to have a card that like kills them from a stall in a slow game, isn't like Bloodhall just better than Devil's Play there?
I think it's quite a lot slower and doesn't do
Could be
anything.
worse.
I don't know if the mana is an issue too.
I mean,
Probably
Devil's...
is.
Well, he's boarding a mountain already, so like you could just make that a blood hall or something like that.
Sure.
That seems like a very small change, which would make a huge difference in those matchups.
I actually, when I saw his list, I thought that the mountain should be a blood hall. I think that post board the Devil's Play plan is not that bad because against those decks he's bringing in Underworld connections, so he's going to naturally kind of be hitting a lot more lands and developing his mana base. So it's reasonable. I don't know if you get enough value to actually want to change the slot because by the same token, if you're Underworld connecting them successfully, then like you're just drawing Bump of the Nights and whatever, and you just do that. Like it's basically the same difference if you're drawing an extra card every turn.
Yeah,
Or
I'm not
drawing
sure that
land.
you put both of those together. I think you might like one or the other.
Okay,
Sure.
that's a different argument then. Yeah.
Connections is a very interesting card too, because that card reminds me a lot of like Dark Tutelage
Mhm.
from a little while ago, just a way to like trump the control mirror, because they're trying, because then they have to try to fight you in so many different angles. They have to try to be able to fight your creatures, they have to try to be able to fight your burn spells, and they have to try to be able to fight the inevitability that Underworld Connections provides. I kind of like how you can go all three angles of attack, and all three are actually very good against a control deck. You know, and obviously just speaking against a control deck, we don't know how those things play out against other aggro decks or mid-range decks with like Thrag Tusk and Restoration Angel, that sort of thing. But it is interesting that it does have the tools to fight that kind of deck if it wants to.
Alrighty. Do you guys have anything more specifically on zombies? You want to move on to the winner and still champion of this format? Was one.
Curse of the Pierced Heart was suggested in chat, and I just want to say I actually really like that. I could see myself doing that.
It's better than Blood Artist in that
That
deck,
seems like
probably.
it would be better than Blood Artist, yeah.
How do you stop my invisible stalker that doesn't die to wrath?
Well, Detention
Yeah,
Sphere is
right.
pretty handy, but other than that.
Ah,
Keep your mouth shut, Glenn.
he had his answer at the ready. Anyway, let's talk about the deck which has won 100% of all large standard events in this format. The blue-white control deck splashing Pillar of Flame, as piloted by apparently not only Todd Anderson and Jerry Thompson and Brad Nelson, but also Brian Brown Dwin, Josh Cho, and I think there was someone else listed in chat. And various wonderful people
Such
who have
luminaries.
done great things for the Magic communities. Anyway, let's go to Steven first, and then we'll move around.
I don't know what I can say about this deck that's like terribly original. It is a blue-white control deck. It's like very, very boring as far as blue-white control goes, in my personal opinion. There's like, we have no intention of doing anything for the first 4 turns. Then we're gonna like, maybe we'll kill your creatures. I don't know. We might play a Planeswalker at some point, and you will die for some reason. It's not entirely clear why, but we'll work it out eventually. Yeah, I don't know, like, splashing for the Pillar of Flame is sort of funny to me. We get 1 Desolate Lighthouse, too, I'd like to point out.
Okay.
It's like, it's so, like, different from the entire rest of the deck. The entire rest of the deck is just, we do not care about a single thing, do not want to cast anything which costs 1 mana, no sir, and then we, like, go to red for Pillar of Flame. It's, like, a good answer to certain things, sure, but, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to, like, anything more creative than my like blue-white control?
Yeah, not especially. I mean, I do think it's interesting they got away with not having to diversify their win conditions so much, because in an unknown metagame, stuff like Slaughter Games is like so bad that people really shouldn't be running it generally. Like when you have no idea what your opponent's even playing, it's pretty hard to actually get good value on Slaughter Games. So they kind of were able to, get that through. And I think that let them run a slightly different build than they might normally have to. The Pillar of Flame thing is really just like they were still, like they had their blue-white deck and they were just still losing to zombies. So like that's really all they could do at that stage. Like they didn't have a better thing. They just couldn't find it. And the list, I know Brad was like the primary developer on that list. Missed playing for top 8 in the last round, I think. And then a bunch of the guys from Roanoke played it, like pretty much everybody. Brian Braunduin, David McDarby, Kenny Castor, Jerry, Brad, Todd, obviously. I don't think I forgot anyone, but those people all showed up with the plan to spike Jace Architect of Thought, and it worked out quite well for Jace Architect of Thought and anyone who happened to have a large stock of Jace Architect of Thought.
All right. Said, do you have blue-white / Pillar of Flame thoughts?
Yep, straight up, I think the deck sucks. Straight up. I don't beat around the bush. I don't know. I don't understand how this deck is like you know that Zombies is going to be one of the best decks in the format, and this deck just beats it. Like, I don't understand how that's true. Like,
Zombies is
it just doesn't.
that bad.
It's just not though. I think that people's Zombies deck were built incorrectly, or I think that this deck would kind of clean up on like the black-green version, because it's just all dudes all the time and no reach, like no nothing. So they're attacking from literally one angle, and then like the second angle would possibly be like what's it called? underworld connections after board. So they're fighting from like 2 angles. And like that's easy to beat for a blue-white board control deck. Like that's a joke. And like they predicted correctly that people are just going to come into the tournament with like black green zombies, which is all dudes, or like thragtusk.com, which is all dudes. So like, yay, look at me, my restoration of my Thragtusk, and it's like, yeah, wrath you a million times and play Jace, you're dead. It's like, yeah, you win. And so like that deck is that deck is very linear, attacking from one angle. But like when you look at like Joe Burnell's deck, which to me is a standout deck in the tournament, it's like, yo, look at all these angles of attack, look at these burn spells, and they're just like, oh, look how dead I am. Like I can't beat that because I have like these pillar of flames that don't do anything now that you have all these burn spells. And like the tension sphere really like against a hyper aggressive like two power 1 mana dudes, like you're playing D sphere, it just does not seem good to me. And I understand like what they were trying to accomplish, and I think they accomplished it very well. Like they had a read on the metagame. People are going to be attacking from a very linear angle of just like in your face with all these efficient creatures, and they're like, yo, I have all these removal spells and like some card advantage, you can't beat that. But like people can adjust to this deck very, very easily. It's very straightforward what their deck is trying to stop. And once you adjust to it, it just seems like it's just terrible. Just not good at all. Like if you adjust it all and you're not just like attack.com, then you have some other way to go about winning the game. Like it seems like it should be very, very good. Like it seems like a Planeswalker against this deck is just like hell. Like yes, they have 4 detention spheres, but like if they don't have a D sphere, like what are they doing about like a Planeswalker? I'm not necessarily sure like what Planeswalker is going to be awesome against them or whatever, but like that's just like seems like a hole in their deck. Like they have detention sphere, but if they don't find a detention sphere, then they're just going to get owned by this card, like all the advantage that it provides. I don't know. I think their deck is like a good week 1 deck because it's very easy to predict what people are going to do week 1 because everyone's just like, yo, zombies, yo, Lotless Troll, you're playing that card. And then they're like, yeah, we can beat that stuff. But like moving forward, it seems like they have to adjust their deck a ton to be able to beat that. And like to be able to beat what people are going to eventually start doing. And I don't think this deck is able to do that.
All right.
I agree with like all of that. I think that the way you would need to adjust the deck to beat more stuff is lower it, and I pretty much agree that it's really tough to do that with the cards that are available. I think for this deck to be good, you need some other deck to exist to beat up stuff that will kill you. So like if a ton of Thragtusk exists, it's really hard to play the burn cards, and then maybe you can play the sword deck. I don't know. It's interesting.
I definitely agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Without question.
I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to ruminate on that. I'm going to run this question back. Do you guys think that deck did well? And I think it did well statistically in the hands of those piloting it. Do you think it did well because of the skill of the people playing it? Because they were above average players, like uniformly? Or because the deck itself was a better than average deck for that tournament? Or both? And we will start with... let's start with Steven again. We're back to your turn.
I definitely think that the people piloting it were better than average, and that's gotta help. I'm like looking at this as a control deck. It's one of the less involved control decks I feel as far as decision making. I don't think that like if you're sitting at home and you are not the best Magic player in the world, and you're like, oh, I sort of want to buy this deck, but I'm not great at Magic. I feel like if you're like not super comfortable with control, this would be a decent place to start. I do think it will start to become very, very bad as the format evolves though, so I wouldn't shell out for all the cards. I think that it's like a good week 1 pick. It beats up on creatures, it beats up on linear decks, it beats up on stuff that will not punish you for playing a slow control deck, and that was most of the format.
Alrighty. Alright, we'll go to Glenn next. I know we tend to go in that order, so...
Sure. I think that it was both for sure. I know that obviously these players are like competent. We all know that. Like they've almost all top-aided an open series, and the deck itself, they worked on it, and they worked on it together. So when you've got among the better players in the tournament working on a deck together, like testing, figuring things out, like they're going to actually understand what they're playing against a lot better than most people. Like most people just brewed up a deck, added some RTR cards or whatever, and showed up to the tournament. That's like by and large the field, I would say. There's not a lot of people who are going to be like figuring out their specific matchups against some decks. You know, when they think they have a bad zombies matchup, they're going to add like centaur healers to the sideboard or something like that. And like, sure, that might even be good, but like they're not going to play, you know, 10, 20 games with centaur healers in their deck to figure out exactly what they do in the matchup, because obviously they do some things well and some things not so well. That's just how a sideboard card like always works. So I think that's generally the field that you're going to see going on. And when you're playing with players who actually know what's going on and are effectively tuning their deck, even if you wind up with a list that's like not optimal for, you know, the metagame in 2 weeks or a month maybe, that doesn't really matter because you're not playing like 2 weeks or a month from now like you're playing in this tournament, you know. So I think that they had a skill edge that they naturally turned into an on-deck edge as well, and I wasn't surprised to see them all performing pretty well. I know they all didn't like really like the deck that much. Like some of them just found it like not especially entertaining to play or like kind of basic. But I mean, when you're playing more powerful cards than your opponents, it's not that hard to win, especially if you don't play them wrong.
Alrighty, said.
I think this is just a classic case of like a theory that I have just about Magic in general. Like in this particular tournament, you know, you have like the SCG Blue team or whatever playing this control deck, and you know that walking into that tournament, that a lot of people they're you know, the non-name players are just going to play the linear aggro deck, and they're just going to clean up on those people because like a control deck is going to give them a better chance to win because the people playing the linear aggro deck, like they just don't play linear aggro decks well. So they're just going to walk into the rest, they're going to walk into the tricks, what have you. They're going to mulligan incorrectly. They're not going to understand what's important, etc. When you look at the people who did well in this tournament with like a zombies deck or whatever, you know, you find like a name like Joe Burnell, someone who has a lot of success on the circuit. Like that's one of the names you're going to find playing zombies, but you're not going to see a lot of people whose name you recognize playing the zombie deck that people were expecting to be there. But when you find someone good playing that deck, you're not surprised to see them finish well with it. But going into that tournament, you know that someone like Todd, Jerry, those guys aren't going to play zombies. It's just not going to happen. So it doesn't surprise me to see them do well with like this kind of deck because they know what people are going to play. And in turn, like there aren't a lot of big name players playing a zombie deck like that. Like imagine if, for example, Paul Reitzel were to play like this Rakdos Zombies deck. Would it surprise anyone if he won the tournament? No. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But not that many people who are named players play a deck like that. It just doesn't happen. They'd rather play a control deck, especially when they predict that people are just going to be playing aggro decks. So I think that this deck doing well, the blue-red control deck, is a matter of like 7 of the best 10 people in the room playing it for starters. And then the people who are playing zombies, their skill is not to the same level of the SCG Blue guys playing blue-white-red control. So I think that leads to them just overperforming with a deck that I don't consider to be great, but I think it was, you know, good for the tournament based on what they thought people were going to play, and they nailed it.
All right, let's open it up a little bit. We did have some other interesting things going on. We had a couple different archetypes, not only in the top 8 but in the top 16. There was some Bant stuff kicking around that I didn't mention that also showed up at the tournament and it did reasonably well. And there were, as mentioned, some graveyard-based sort of mulch, grizzly salvage things going on. So I'm just going to give each of you an opportunity to pick out things that we didn't specifically talk about that you either do or don't like, and we can go on from there. And we will start with Seti Bear. I know you just talked.
Me!
But
that's okay.
I know you can talk forever. So
talking's a huge problem for me, so
yeah.
You should let someone else go. Now, one of the decks that kind of interests me here was a deck that got 15th place by Andrew Shrout, Zorius Aggro. Just like pure white weenie deck, which again is super linear. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what it can do to be like unlinear, but like a deck like blue, white, red seems like it would crush this kind of deck because it doesn't have any Army in a Can cards. But at the same time, you know, you can start like your initial rush, and then like, you know, they deal with your initial rush via Terminus or Supreme Verdict, and then you Geist them. And I think that like that's a real thing. I think that Geist is like pretty underplayed at this point. It's also difficult to find a home for Geist right now because Blue White Delver isn't really a thing, or at least we assume it's not a thing. Steven probably wants it to be a thing. But this deck definitely interests me. It seems like it would absolutely destroy like any versions of the zombie deck. I don't care what colors the zombie decks are, with like Knight of Glory, Elite Inquisitor, Riders of Gavany, First Strike, like just all of that stuff seems like it would be relatively good. And if you can find a way to not be linear, or if you can find a way to be like great at being linear, like before like a linear deck like this, we play a couple threats, they have to wrath them, then you play Geist, they have to kill that, and then they play Cloud Goat Ranger, stuff like that, so that you can pace the game in such a way that they can't keep wrathing you because they don't have enough cards to do that. Then I think this kind of deck could be good. Not sure if the cards exist to do that. One of the cards that immediately, and I'm pretty sure this card's still legal, Increasing Devotion. The thing that makes 6 tokens, that card's still legal, I'm pretty sure. But that card seems like it would be relatively difficult for like the blue-white red deck to be able to deal with. Just stuff like that to consider. Also, little surprised we haven't seen much Lingering Souls yet, but that's it.
Yeah, I just very briefly want to comment that it makes me so sad that Precinct Captain was not printed when Humans was like an actual shell of a deck, because man, that card would have been so good there.
It would have been ridiculous there.
Yeah, like that card is so insane, and it I think it's struggling to find a home now when it would not have done so before. But anyway, we should move along. Glenn, what did and didn't you like?
The deck I actually had a lot of fun looking at in the tournament was Caleb's, which was Is It Delver, or Blue Red Delver if you prefer, which I certainly do. Because obviously, I'm a big fan of Snapcaster Mage and Delver Secrets, and I've been hoping the deck would have a new home. And I don't know if it's going to, once it's all said and done. His list is obviously way less powerful than what we're used to, and Caleb also did himself a fair bit of an experimental disservice with just a million one-ofs in the standard portion. But he did try out a few things he said were really interesting. One of the things I like about that deck is it's a very good bonfire deck right now, because it capitalizes really well on the burn aspect of bonfire, whereas a lot of decks have transitioned into being more Mizzy and Mortars decks, I think. Even some of the red-green or green-white-red decks would probably prefer to be that. So I like being able to actually Miracle the Bonfire and get a ton of value out of the Lava Axe functionality, especially with 3/2 flyers. Rune Chanter's Pike is still sweet. It's just that's the deck that I'm most interested in. Thought it was really cool he played Thought Flare and said that was good. He added it randomly when someone asked if they could borrow a Jace he was planning to play in that slot. So yeah, he said it was just awesome to have it. And, every time he drew it, he crushed. So Thought Flare might be the real deal in that one. Essence Backlash was the more interesting one. I don't know how good that was, but I imagine Essence Backlashing at Thragtusk feels just about as good as it sounds.
Do you go for the Lava Axe puns there when you're countering it? Do you ask them a question? Do you ask them if it's going to resolve?
I've already backlashed a number of people in the limited format, so I've come up with quite a number of essence drains.
You should ask them if they get a token after you backlash it. It's well,
can I deal 8?
Yeah, you take 5. Do you at least get your 3/3? And they're no. They just get very mad.
Alrighty, Steven, is there anything that you do or do not like?
The most exciting thing to see in the format for me was a couple of Reanimator decks. I believe there were 2 in the top 16. They were very different from each other. And I'm not convinced that they're good at all. I'm not convinced that they'll stay around, but it would be really sweet to see a format with a graveyard strategy in standard again. I just think that when you get that, it diversifies everything a lot. It means people are playing, from different angles. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm not excited about the lists particularly. I don't think they were great, but I'm excited about the archetype. Maybe someone can make that work.
Alright, and just no one wants to talk about boring Jund midrange? Because
no,
I know I don't.
Not.
Okay,
Not
good. Good. I'm glad we're all on the same page. Alright, well you wanna scooch along then? You have anything else? Let's make with the scooching, I suppose.
Scooch is such a good word.
It is, yeah. So the Cincinnati Legacy Open was won by one Caleb Durward with a blue-black Tezzeret deck in a top 8 that was varied and numerous. I think it was 2 Blue-Red Delver, 1 Rug Delver, a Stone Blade, a Death and Taxes, a Show and Tell, and probably one other thing I'm forgetting. Does anyone know off the top of my head? Some other archetype.
Enchantress? Did you say Enchantress?
Oh, yes. Yes, Enchantress. That
the
was...
deck I'll be talking about, baby.
Okay, good. I want to talk about Tezzeret first, because I don't know what's going on, and that deck looks really awesome. So we're gonna sort of step out of time here with Glenn Jones, and he's going to explain to me how that blue-black Tezzeret deck can cause people to lose matches of Magic the Gathering.
All right. Well, the deck actually looks a lot like strategies we've seen people, try even unsuccessfully in Standard not too long ago. So that in and of itself is pretty awkward. But basically, it's a blue-black deck that's primary goal is to cast a turn 2 Planeswalker. It's got 7 Planeswalkers to try and do that, 6 Signets, 6 Soul Lands. So like it's a draw that happens not, infrequently. And if you're doing it on the play, you don't have to worry about like days or spell pierce a lot of the time. If you're doing it on the draw, it's much more awkward because they can brainstorm or stuff like that in response. They have ponders to set it up. It's like way more grim. But either way, the deck has enough mana that eventually you can deploy these threats. And if they don't have the answer, especially like on the spot, starting activating Jace on turn 2 is like pretty silly. A Jace activation is incredibly powerful in the format. It's just awesome. The deck even runs, like it's got Ancient Tomb, so it's obviously shocking itself a lot. But City of Traders alongside, like you're basically wastelanding yourself in order to cast your Jace on turn 2. But like that's good enough, so it's not that big a deal. One of the cuter things it can do is Chalice of the Void on 1, which I actually assumed he would run more Chalices if you're running like the Soul Ring mana base, because that's backbreaking to a lot of decks in the format, most especially like Rug Delver. It's pretty hard to win if there's a Chalice of the Void on 1 and you're playing Rug Delver. I imagine it is theoretically possible. I haven't seen anyone ever do it. I wouldn't want to try. Like, sounds just miserable. The biggest gains I think that the deck had was Baleful Strix. It's an artifact. It's blue. It pitches to Force of Will. You can fight it with Tezzeret. It blocks everything, most especially like Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose, which were otherwise cards you had to like really specifically answer. Nimble Mongoose especially. So really, it's kind of just a product of some engines from other decks getting jammed in here. I know that Drew Levin posted up like an Ensnaring Bridge, Tezzeret, Soul Land deck a while ago on Star City, and there have been various aggro control Baleful Strix decks showing up over the past few months in the hands of like AJ Sacker and Sam Black. So some of the strengths of these cards are just getting like melded together. And this one, when you couldn't do anything about a turn 2 Planeswalker, that was what he did, and you were just dead. Caleb said he did it, I think he said something like twice per 2 matches or something like that. So that's pretty good. It's hard to say how good he's running to, hit that, but it's pretty strong. It has a standard Caleb, bunch of bullets and one-ofs. The one-of Relic of Progenitus in the main deck for Trinket Mage, Engineer Explosives, all that good stuff. And then a relatively kooky sideboard again, more bullets. So it's kind of Caleb's deck, he's got a bunch of big spells. The Karn, honestly, like the Karn seems really out of place to me, but Caleb said it was awesome for him. I'm sure it was because like it's Karn. It's hard to like play him and it not be awesome, and I guess you have Thirst for Knowledge when he isn't good. So I don't know. I would probably not run the Karns, or the Karn, I should say, if I was trying this deck. I feel like if I'm casting Karn, I could be casting like anything, and it would probably be just as good, if not better.
Literal anything.
All right. Well, thank you for your beautiful explanation, and now we will go to my next person of choice, Cedric, to explain why no one in the universe should ever play this deck of Magic the Gathering cards.
I hate it. I hate it. How can you play Karn in Legacy? It costs 7 mana. 7. You can't even put into play off Show and Tell. It can't be done. And it costs 7 mana. I don't know, man. I just look at this deck. It just looks comically bad. Like, I get it, I guess. I get what he's trying to do there with Tezzeret and the Jaces and the 2 mana lands and yippity-doo. Has he never been wastelanded before? I don't get it. I don't understand how this works. Like, Wasteland's a card in the formats, and I don't know what he can do about it. Maybe it's better than I think. I don't know. But it looks just bad. But I mean, Caleb won the tournament, and more power to him. But I just look at this deck, and it just seems like it's ambitious is the word I would use. That's the nice word. That's the politically
It's a
correct
good word. I like that word.
It's a good
Right?
catch-all for things. You could make
It's-
ambitious keeps and have ambitious deck lists. It's a good.
Yeah, it's really nice because like it's a positive word that actually means something negative, but it sounds nice.
Yeah. I think
So I
we
really like it.
I think we can expect to see it a lot in upcoming Magic casting. Like as casting gets better, we can have people use words like ambitious and
Absolutely.
interesting. I think you
Yeah.
can be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, that is a deck personally, and obviously you guys know where I stand on Legacy. You know, I like Goblins, obviously. I'm anti-Rug Delver, but you know there are some decks that I wouldn't play that I think are good. I think Maverick is good. I think Show and Tell decks are good. I think Storm is good. You know, stuff like that. Where you know I wouldn't necessarily play it myself, but I wouldn't make fun of you or fault you for playing said deck. And this is a deck where I don't think if you were to come up to me and say, "Hey, said man, look at this deck. Should I play it?" I would take your deck list and I would rip it up. That's what I would do. So that is how I stand on those 75 cards.
So
Slap him.
So the moral of the
Slap
story
him.
is, if you're at a tournament and you see Cedric, try and keep at least 20 feet away from him at all times, or he will like ruin your stuff. Like he'll just rip up your deck, and it's bad
Well,
times.
I'll just make you write it again so it'll prove a point. Because then you have to write down Karn Liberated again on your deck list. And I think the first time you can get away with it yourself, but the second time, when you have to actually put it in stone again, I don't think you could do it. So that's all.
All right. Do you have any Tezzeret related wisdom, Steven, for us? No.
Wisdom would definitely not be a noun to describe anything I have to say about this deck.
Advice,
I mean,
words of caution.
it's one of those legacy decks, you know. If like somebody else had brought this deck to the tournament and not placed first, we would, I think, just be laughing at them like altogether. But yeah.
Would you, and this is open to all members of the cast, would you classify this as an attic level deck?
The old attic.
I don't even know if you
Caleb's definitely
store this in
different,
the attic.
Right, because this is sort of a newer attic deck. This isn't like I found something from a while ago. I don't know.
Steven, your point is just like so accurate. I didn't even think about that. Just if someone else was to play this deck and like Glenn did a feature on this deck after like round 3, and you're like, "Hey man, what's your record?" And the guy's like, "Dude, I'm 2-1 at the Sam City Games Open, and I'm having so much fun. Look at this card, and look at this Thopter Foundry. Isn't it cool? And this is why I have one Trinket Mage, and this Go for the Throat. I've tested it a bunch. It was Doomblade first, and then it was Terror, but then we decided it was going to be Go for the Throat." We would the comments on that thing, on the Starseed thing, would be like, "You're stupid. He's dumb. Glenn, why'd you feature another crappy deck?" But because Caleb won the tournament, it's like, "Oh, I think this might be okay."
This has been a Cedric Phillips theater moment.
It's just
like the
true.
great professor over there, just all the parts.
That Doomblade line was the best. Well, it used to be Doomblade, but we tested it a lot.
It's just accurate. There's a Doomblade in sideboard. I didn't even know that.
I knew that. Yep.
Oh, that's amazing.
You guys can be on the lookout for that in Glenn's future deck techs.
That's so good. All right, go on. I'm just gonna laugh. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about. I know Cedric wanted to talk about Enchantress. Let's do a general Legacy wrap up. If you have anything about Legacy you want to talk about, we will start with Glenn because he so rarely gets to lead.
Yeah, sure. I found it pretty peculiar that Blue Red Delver did so well this weekend. As someone who has played Blue Red Delver in the past, like I don't think it's an especially powerful deck, and its worst matchup is like Rug, which was the most popular deck in the format, just a couple weeks ago. And I think Rug has become a much worse deck, incidentally. Like Abrupt Decay is really bad for it because it's an awesome answer to Tarmogoyf, especially, and to a lesser extent Delver Secrets. and even Sylvan Library, which they've begun adopting. So like being able to kill all those permanents in an uncounterable way that's really cheap is pretty nice for all these bug decks that are probably going to start crawling out of the woodwork. And the blue-red deck, I guess, can take advantage of people playing less Rug, maybe, but like it's not like its cards are significantly better against Abrupt Decay. Like Goblin Guide is, still just Goblin Guide. He does what he does, but he's not, something you're going to be really excited to be playing, especially in the Brainstorm format. And this deck needs to get to a higher mana count than Rug Delver does because of its Snapcaster mages. So like you have to avoid getting Wastelanded, which you can do because you have basics, but it's still tricky to just draw like exactly 3 or 4 lands. I don't know. It's an okay deck. It's a little worse than Rug Delver in a few matchups. I think it's better against like Merfolk and stuff like that probably. It's probably about the same against Combo. I think it's better against Maverick by a significant amount, so that might be one of the reasons that it did well. But it did place 2 people in the top 8, and they were both then summarily eliminated by the one remaining Rug player, who just killed them all pretty easily from the sound of it. So, there's that to consider. Worth noting is Andrew Schneider, who top 4'd with the Blue-Red Delver. This was the first time I think he top 8'd an Open Series and didn't win it. He actually won twice with Blue-Red Delver in the past like year and a half or something like that. So, sorry to break that streak, Andrew. That's rough. It's rough.
It sounds like he truly has some of life's greatest issues. Steven?
First place problems.
Steven, do you have any legacy thoughts?
We talked about Tezzeret, we talked about the Delver decks, Cedric's got Enchantress covered. I already talked about No One Tell, and I'm like, there's one deck left, and I'm like actively not going to talk about it.
All right.
For you guys. Like, just sorry. Go ahead, Cedric.
I appreciate you taking that for the team, Steven. Cedric, you may roll.
All right, well,
Cedric knows what the deck is.
Yes, I do. To his credit, I'll just make a quick comment about the Death and Taxes dude. Glenn, where did you say he was from?
Denmark. He came over with a number of players dropped by Cincinnati on their way to San Jose, including Rasmus Seibast, Christopher Larson, Michael Bond. I think those were the 4. I can't remember if there was another one. I don't think there was. Yep.
Okay. Apparently, from the people in the chat, this gentleman who played Death and Taxes in this tournament to top 4 made top 16 at Grand Prix Ghent with Death and Taxes. Mm-hmm. So I guess that could be a thing. Maybe he knows how to play those white creatures better than everyone else. But moving along. Enchantress, Chris Anderson played the deck to top 8. He's been playing the deck for about 3 weeks now. I started at the Invitational. He needs to switch it up from Elves, he told me, because Terminus is a thing and you can't actually beat a Sensei's Top and play with a mana open. So I don't think you can play a deck like that if you can't beat that. So he has finally, reluctantly, made the change to Enchantress. It seems like a rather difficult deck to play. However, Andrew Cuneo, this is his deck list, and he is the one that does the winning with the deck. And apparently the deck is very good, which would not surprise me. Glenn, I know you have some experience playing this deck as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's my legacy deck on Moto. Yep.
And this deck is pretty legit, from what I've been told.
It's pretty good against the fair decks, and your sideboard makes you like pretty good against a lot of the unfair decks. I don't like playing against like specific ones. Blue-Red Delver is a pretty tough matchup from what we saw. It's like actually really bad. And Goblins can be tough just because they have Rashad Port for your wild growths. So that's like a lot worse. Any Rashad Port deck is going to be like kind of tough.
Okay. But I think that this deck is legitimate. I don't think this is a fluke appearance. Like, I think that, Chris is a relatively skilled player. So it doesn't surprise me to see him make the top 8 of one of these things. But if you guys follow Andrew Cuneo's stream, he's been streaming this deck forever. He made top 8 of a Magic Online Championship Series with it. It's a little bit wonky and off the wall. It's got some cards that you're not used to seeing, like Seal of Removal and Carpet of Flowers and all of this cool jazz that's in here. But I think that this deck is legit. The other thing that's going to surprise some people, and I'm looking over the top 16 deck list right now, I don't think there's any Blue-White Miracles in the top 16. Is that correct? Glenny Jones? Maybe there's 1 or 2?
I don't think there was. I honestly can't remember, though.
I see Justin Adams. I see Justin Adams.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have an 11th place and then nothing else. I think I think there's an explanation for that. And the reason is this. the last couple Star City Games events that we have covered have been on the West Coast. I did the coverage for Portland. I did the coverage for Los Angeles, and then the Invitational where the people flew in to do that tournament. All the players obviously flying in to play that tournament. The West Coast, that deck is huge over there, and the name players on the circuit, Michael Hetrick, Joe Lissette, some of the other people are the kinds of guys that play that deck and also do incredibly well at that deck. So the name players on the East Coast are not really those who play the Terminus deck. Like, Matt Costa plays Rug anyway. Ben Friedman plays Stoneblade. But the guys on the East Coast don't really play that deck very much. So I'm not incredibly surprised to A, not see it do very well, and B, like none of the name players were playing it this weekend, I'm pretty sure. Glenn, you can correct me if I'm wrong about that because you were there.
Yeah, not too many. I know there were a few more Stoneforge Mystics than there were before. I think like Brian Brodulin was one of the players who was playing the blue-white deck. I can't really remember too many others who were.
Okay. But basically, just the point I'm trying to make is like that deck's not dead or anything. It's not like going anywhere, I don't think. I just think that there were like the best players in attendance weren't playing it, so they can't rise to the top with the deck and solidify it as one of the best decks in the tournament. And then B, just people on the East Coast don't really play that deck. I think it's more of a West Coast deck, or like the name players that play that deck live in actual Northeast instead of in the Midwest. So that was it.
Alrighty. My only comment was that I thought the picture you guys were using for Cranderson at this event was absolutely adorable. Good work
He
to the
looks
Star
great.
City crew. It was just wonderful. So the next place I want to go is the Magic Online pre-releases for Return to Ravnica. I know a lot of you have played in your real-life pre-releases, but it is about to hit stores in the virtual world, virtual stores, I guess, and we are about to have a system implemented where not only do you have to pay $25, but you have to pay 5 of them directly to the store and 20 of them in ticket form. So
I shot myself in the head. Go ahead.
Thanks.
I
I'm
think you
interested.
missed.
I'm
Like, it
interested to
was
hear
not really lined up.
how each person feels about this. We will start with Cedric. Cedric, how do you feel about this turn of events?
I
We
love
should,
it.
like, all three of us should say what we feel at the same time.
That sounds
We
like
just like
a fun
shut it
experience
down.
for the
It would
listener
take
at home.
a third as long, and you'd hear exactly the same thing from all three of us, right?
But Steven, I love it. I think it's a great idea. I think that having to pay $5 to be able to play is just super smart. If I have, I don't know, 500 tickets on my account, I can't play. I can't do it. I want to.
Cedric's taking a slightly different line than I expected.
I want to play with my 500 I want to play with my 500 tickets, but they won't let me. And I think that's a great idea. I think that's genius. And they're a very smart company for doing such a thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if my sarcasm is thick enough, but that's all I'm going to say about this. That I have to actually spend money to play when I have a ton of virtual money, and they won't let me play. So, Adam, moving along.
Yeah. All right. Steven, how do you feel? Good fun?
I'm confused. Obviously, get this out of the way. It's like absolutely terrible. Like the world is ending. Oh no. I think gas prices are up to like $4.80 in California because of this. Just like by the way. I'm confused. The tickets are the only place you get tickets on Magic Online is if someone buys them from the store, right? Someone like magically producing tickets somewhere. So like, if it was just 25 tickets, that would mean that another $5 had been spent in the store. But they're like making it so that you specifically have to spend the $5. And the only reason I can think that they could get anything out of doing that is if it encourages people to actually use the store who never have before. Maybe they're like, well, trading with bots is really boring. I'll just use the store this time. And maybe that will happen. But I think what's going to happen more so is that many, many people who would have played in pre-releases won't. Because, I mean, I'm not going to.
All right. Glenn, do you have any pre-release related thoughts?
Sure. Pre-releases on Moto have always been like traditionally kind of an awful value depending. They recently reversed like the Insano gouge of like having it be 30, which was, nice, although it was framed as a like, hey guys, we've just dropped the price. And it's like, oh yeah, now it's what it was like a year ago. Awesome. So that was like kind of awkward. But I imagine one of the motivations for doing this was actually like the fact that they would have to put up with, this because I don't like it. I imagine it's probably the sort of solution where they didn't put like a whole ton of thought into it. They're like, it's basically the same thing. I'm sure people won't mind that much. And like, it's easy to not be the person spending event tickets and realize like how much people like spending their event tickets instead of money, Like, it's just, I think it's a very easy thought to overlook. It may have just realistically happened here. Like, I put that within like the range of possibilities. It is super annoying. I know I personally like to be able to just, go to an event, click it, and enter it. That's like one of my small joys in life that that is actually associated with Magic Online. Is like how easy it is to just
Your
start a
life
match.
is terrible.
We have
My Magic Online joys. I hate playing Magic Online a lot of the time. This is one of the things I like about it, that I can get rid of my money quickly and efficiently.
All right.
But now they're adding these hoops, and what if I change my mind about my guild? Then I have to buy a different thing, and I'm stuck with this one. And why can't I trade them? Why do they keep making these untradeable things that I buy? It doesn't make any sense. I just want to be able to buy something and then give it to someone else, perhaps in exchange for more, perhaps in exchange for less. Whatever I want to do. Why can't I do it? I don't understand. Like, I am still like, I guess, baffled over this and the cube tickets. Like, they've done it twice now, basically. Like, it's the same exact system, but why is it untradeable? I just don't know.
Literal twice in like 3 weeks too.
Yeah, like, I understand the function, guys. Like, I'm not a complete idiot. Like, I have to go to the store to buy this guild mark. That's $5 more straight to the store. That means I had to go to the store. That means you're floating more product for cash onto the market than tickets for product, which is like the same difference because it's all online already. I get it. I understand it. I just don't know why. Like, it's just not necessary. It's like a super thin gain, and like everyone's spending money anyway. Like, the program makes money hand over fist. I don't understand. It's just confusing to me. Like,
All right.
Why bother people?
I actually have real thoughts about this now.
Okay. You wanna?
Instead of sarcastic thoughts. So okay, so it used to cost 30, now it costs 25. But like, the thing that like drives me crazy is they like lowered the cost, but then they're secretly punishing you. They're like, look at this sweet thing we did, and it's like, yes, it costs less, and it's like, but we're gonna punish you because we did that. And it's like, why? I don't understand why I'm being punished. It's like, but it costs less, but it doesn't actually. That's dumb. And then the other thing is, I lost it. No. No, it was good too.
How old are you?
I'm sure it was.
I'm very old, Steven. I have a small brain and I lost it.
All right. Well, I have like
Just go.
I have like 2 minutes of a thing. Like, look, I'm not a smart man, okay? Like, there's almost only one thing I do reasonably well, and I play like a lot of Magic Online when I'm playing Magic Online, and like I buy into things, and Wizards makes money off me because I'm dumb and stuff like. And they just like they keep making decisions that are like really bad for me as a player, and I find them like personally insulting. And like they did that where they were like, here's the cube thing, here are some tickets you can't trade. It's still terrible value. You get these like poop packs that you can't pay back your entry with, but you're stupid, and like here you go. And I was like talking about how that wasn't good, and people were like, well, Wizards is a big company, so shut up, they probably know what they're doing. And now it's like they're doing another thing where I have to like I have all these tickets, but I can't play these terrible value events. Like I need someone from Wizards to explain to me why these things are happening to me. Like as someone who uses their product constantly, like why is this? Did I do something wrong? Like am I being punished? Is it because I'm too stupid?
Well, someone's stupid. I don't want to say who, but it can't be Wizards, so it has to be you.
I mean, it could be me. I'm pretty dumb. Like I'm just gonna throw that out there. But like, I just wish someone would explain it to me. Like maybe there was some sort of post like on Twitter, and Wizards was like, "This is why you have to spend money, and if you had 25 tickets, you couldn't buy it at the store." Like, I don't get it, man. And like, I don't understand why no one will explain it to me, and why like I just have to feel like I'm getting insulted every time I log on to Magic Online. Like, I don't understand why that's happening.
Well, I think that like just this is the other thing I want to bring up, just the Wizards War Room meetings, like before they let like something go. Like with the cube tickets, they were just like, all right, let's like sit down and have a meeting. All right, so we're gonna do cube tickets this time. And then someone in the meeting is like, well, are we gonna make the cube tickets tradable? And then they're just like, no. Everybody good with that? They're like, yep, let's go to lunch. Like with this one, it's just like, well, what if they have 25 tickets? Can they just do that? No, it costs $20 and $5. But can they just do it with 25 tickets? No. And everyone else at the meeting just like looks at each other and they're just like, okay, bye. Like you just can't tell the person that they're wrong in the meeting or something. Like I want to know how the meetings work there. Where like they make these decisions, everyone agrees to the decisions, and then 3 days later, people on Twitter are like, "This is dumb. Why did you guys do that?" And they're just like, "We didn't think about that." It just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know, man. I don't even know if it's like, maybe it's because I'm stupid and like they actually did think about it and there are problems, but like no one will explain them to me, so I can never find out what they are.
That's the issue I have. Like, just I'm perfectly willing to believe that there are like rational reasons for these choices that like aren't just ways to like edge minor amounts of value out of us in a system that was like already profitable for you and already like tricked enough for us to make us think it was profitable. So like, you know, every time the system changes in like a slight way to get you, you know, it's like why not? Why just do a big change that gets me like a lot once every like 5 years? Don't like just ruin my week, you know, every couple weeks with
Yeah,
these
man.
tiny little
I
things.
don't know.
You know?
Like
Yeah, it seems like they think that people are like. It actually feels like to me, and I could be wrong about this overstating. It seems like they think that like I don't know that the people that like do this game or play this game or whatever are just dumb or whatever, and they're just like, oh, they just won't notice. Or it won't be a big deal. And then everyone just is literally up in arms about it. Like 24 hours later, it just takes no time to turn around and everyone just being like, WTF, and they're
Yeah.
just like, crap, we didn't expect this kind of backlash, and it's like, yes, you did. You knew this was probably going to happen, and then they just won't address it or something. And it's just like it's insulting.
There should just be like a couple players they consult with, right? Like they don't even have to make it public. Like but just have a couple people who are like plugged in who will look at this issue from like the other side first rather than the wizard side first. And like stuff like that's really easy to catch. Like they'll just say, oh, why should I have to spend $5? I have like $1,000 in tickets. Like, oh, that's a good point. I don't know why you should have to spend $5 when you've, you know, accrued $1,000 in our economy. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You're right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, like you said, I'm willing to believe there are reasons. I just don't know what they are, and no one will tell me. So,
Yep.
like, I just log on and feel insulted, like, every 2 weeks. So that's how it goes, man. I just want to give everyone at Wizards a big hug. That's pretty much how I feel.
You could just stop playing.
The thing I just cannot understand about Magic Online at all, just 100% cannot understand, is where are the like player positive promotions? Where are they happen sometimes. They'll have like mixed ticks drafts once in a blue moon, and they're still horrible EV because limited events are so bad. They have like special stuff for constructed, like, well, once a year at Christmas. I don't even know. I guess maybe like the MOCS is something like that. I guess the MOCS is a decent example of something like that, where they're like actually adding some positive value for the player. So there's like one thing which is cool. But if you look at what Valve does, and I think Valve is a very good comparison point because they have a 24/7 software client going in Steam, and Magic Online is like a 24/7 Magic cards playing client going. Valve has sales constantly, and they have sales constantly because it generates trillions of billions of millions of dollars of revenue for Valve. Like, they get 50 times sales in the game when it's on sale, and then after people buy the game, they keep playing and tell their friends, and their friends buy it too. Why don't you have like Prismatic Weekend, where Prismatic events are like, on average, you make $5 when you play in them, and it's amazing, and everyone plays in them, and it's cool. And then the next week, like, you don't have all the amazing prizes for Prismatic anymore, but people are playing it again. Like, you have an entire another format of constructed tournaments firing, which is making you like $300 for every tournament that fires. Why doesn't Wizards do that? And it makes Magic better. More people play Magic all of a sudden. that just really irritates me that there's so little in the way of positive promotion for the product, and all the changes that we see just about are these like negative ring you for more money slightly sort of things. Do something to get casual players into Constructed. Do like, I don't know, like sell them an entire Constructed deck in the store. Just like give them, for $100, you can buy the first place Constructed deck for this format. Give them that option, and you're going to get more people playing Constructed. Do something like that. Get people involved in Magic with your product instead of like whatever this is.
That's fair.
I think this discussion went to a sweet place. I don't know. It angers me that I feel like every time something changes on Magic Online, I am being directly insulted as a human being by the company that I am paying or making a large amount of money for. It causes me to be somewhat irate.
I think, I think the thing that makes everyone most upset, and we can move on after this if you guys want to, but it's just, I think we wouldn't be so upset if we had explanations for the things that they're doing, even if the explanations are ridiculous. Like, you could pinpoint it to be like, oh, well, they're doing it because of this reason. Like, that's a bad reason, but at least they have a reason, instead of just, like, being here just guessing. I'm like, do they hate us? Do they not like that we play Magic Online a bunch? Is it because I'm ugly? I don't understand why they're doing this. But instead, we're just all like guessing, and we're talking amongst each other, and we're like, why would they do this? I'm mad. And I'm mad too, and I don't know why either. And we're just guessing on why they're making their decisions, and they just like won't out and explain some things. And I don't like when people just like ignore like their audience or whatever about why they're doing what they're doing. They're just like, we don't have to explain what we're doing. We're just going to do it. And if you don't like it, go do something else. But we know you won't. So just shut up. Like, and that's what I feel like they're doing.
There are so many legitimately good reasons to like do bad things. Like, it could be because I'm ugly, it could be because I'm stupid. There are so many good reasons, but they won't tell me why.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's run along. I believe we wanted to talk, and I don't know how long this exact discussion was going to go, but we wanted to talk about winning in a new standard format versus winning in an established standard format. I believe there was some talk of that. And because, Steven, you brought it up, Steven, you get to start.
Yeah, sure, I'm down.
Run it.
It's like an interesting question. If you look at Standard 2 weeks ago and you asked yourself, what do I have to do to win in this format? The answer was very, very clear. I have to ask my friend to borrow his Delver deck. Like, GG. More seriously, like, you have to be able to beat Delver, you have to be able to beat zombies, you have to be able to beat some ramp decks. Sometimes there's some other stuff. There might be an infect deck. You know, we do this show where, like, every week we look at the metagame and say, like, well, yeah, this is what happens in Standard right now, and then we can talk about what needs to happen, change, and etc. And we sort of tried to do that for the Standard format. We were like, well, look at zombies. Zombies is going to be big. But in actuality, going into a brand new Standard format, it's very difficult to work out exactly what you want to do. And we saw the good players playing like a very single-minded control deck. And I'm not sure that that was actually the best. And obviously they got the win, but for the number of good players who were playing that deck, I'm not sure that the results were actually that good on average. So I don't know if that was the right solution. I feel like I would try to go with a multi-avenue of attack aggressive deck in a new format. I feel like that's pretty much what Cedric was saying he thought the best deck was. So maybe just like try to build something powerful, consistent, and redundant. But I don't know. And it's really hard to do that too. It's much, much harder than just looking online and picking up the winning deck from last week. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like have testing groups, or are you on SCG Premium reading articles, or what?
I mean, not
you
me.
can go.
Like, yeah, I'll never play in any of these tournaments, at least as long as I have this job. So it's not like a super relevant thing for me since I'll always be working. But I mean, I guess it comes up from time to time, and I agree with most of your points. Like, you want to identify something that's good and then make your deck do the good thing like as effectively as possible, probably. And I actually think that that's pretty good. I'm not a big fan of diversifying in the first week because A, like it's hard to make sure that your plan A and your plan B are actually both good against like the field when you don't have like a great read on the field or what they'll be playing. I'd rather just have like a really awesome plan A while other people are, trying a bunch of stuff that may or may not work in most cases. And you need to have like some plans, but I think you can relegate those to the sideboard more so than like trying to become really diverse. Like that's one of the reasons I would much rather be like Joe Bernal's deck rather than that Jun Zombies deck because it's like, yeah, maybe that guy's got more game. He's got like a wider range of effects in his deck. Like he can do more stuff with the spells he has. But Joe's deck is so much better at doing the things that it wants to do that I think it's just like a much better deck in the format, at least at this time. That can change like really fast, obviously, but and I think that was one of the things the control deck really kind of pounced on. It was just like, this is how I'm going to try and kill you. I've got like all these planeswalkers, very specific. Like, if you're playing creatures, get out. If you're not, well, I don't know what you're playing because we didn't find any of those decks. So that's sort of the general idea, I think, is to be really good at doing really specific things. Because it is usually pretty easy to identify what cards aren't working with what you're trying to do when you're building a new deck. It's not so easy when you're trying to do a lot of stuff, which is a common problem for control decks. Like, it's not typical for a control deck to win in week one because they usually don't line their answers up against the threats correctly. I think in this instance, we had a rare exception because the answers are so good that they line up against like everything. Like Terminus, Supreme Verdict, Jace, Tameo. It's pretty hard to find permanents that are like actually effectively battling these cards. I think Joe's strategy was one of the few in the room that like was because he had a bunch of sweet burn spells and they didn't really have a way to defend themselves from that. They just got sometimes, and when Joe flooded or got mana screwed, they didn't get got, which is what happened in his top 4 match against Todd. So
it's interesting that you say that control decks don't win in a new format because a year ago we saw like the top 8 was Wolf Run, then Solar Flare, another Solar Flare, Blue Black Control.
What do you mean by like a year ago? Because like I'm talking like when there's a mass rotation.
Yeah, so a year ago was when we had the last mass rotation for Standard.
Wasn't that Innistrad in Indianapolis?
Sure.
It was won by Mono Red.
It was. I have it won by Wolf Run. I read your like SCG coverage.
Wolf Run was when Keswick Wolf Run came out. Like there was like a week later, I think, something. But
yeah, maybe I'm in the wrong place.
That was like a week 2 deck, I think. But like that's the thing. Like week 2, everything changes. Like once there's a target,
Okay. Wow. So you think 1 week is like that big a deal?
I mean, I'm not saying like specifically a week. Like I'm just like the next tournament. Like your target. Once you have a target, the metagame's like always very different. Is basically my point. Like right now there wasn't a target other than like the vague notion that Drouf's Messenger would be entering play. Like that's all that people really knew about this.
He has a message for you.
Yeah.
Yep. There will be messages and maybe there will be some other stuff. Like I think most people assumed like Tameo and Terminus would be like cards they'd have to see, but I don't think that they like knew exactly what that shell would look like. So.
All right, Steady. Raise the anchor. Bring us on home.
Ask me the question again.
Go die in a hole.
I'm serious. We divulged into different areas.
What do you have to do in a new standard format to win versus what you have to do in an established standard format?
Okay. In a new standard format, I think more than anything, I think it's just like very important to not overreact to results that you see. More than anything, at this point, like obviously there are going to be new decks. They're doing cool things, and like these decks look cool. Like blue, white, red control looks cool. The reanimator deck looks cool. Like there are different takes on zombie decks. There are 3 different ones you can play. Like all these things are bright flashing lights and all this cool stuff. But you have to put all of those results in perspective and not just copy paste and just go to a tournament with them, because there is a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of innovation to be done as well. So I think you just have to be realistic at the results that you're looking at. Assess them the best that you can. Try not to be like, I I'm trying to think of the word here. I just like look at the results, like, and like if you see that like Todd Anderson won this tournament, just don't go, that's the best deck, that's what I'm playing. I don't care what like the other 7 guys in the top 8 played. Doesn't matter to me because I know Todd Anderson's name. I know that Jerry and those guys built that deck, so that's what we're playing, and it's got to be the best thing ever. Like that kind of thing, like looking at things that way, I think will get you hurt and lead you to a poor tournament performance. Stuff like that. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Like, yeah, that deck could be perfectly reasonable. It could be very good. Maybe it needs some tweaks. Maybe it's just not good, and they just won because Todd is a very good player in the tournament. But to look at like a deck like that and look at week 1 and just like looking at the results of week 1 last year where Mono Red won. I think it was a Mono Red mirror in the finals, and just going, holy crap, Mono Red. We're playing Mono Red. That's what's going to happen. I'm playing it. And the next week, person's like, time reinforcements. You're like, oh, God. Like, just stuff like that. Like, you just look at the results, assess them. Don't be crazy. Like, don't overanalyze them or, cut yourself short and just be like, yeah, so I'm playing. This guy's awesome. I'm playing this. That's all. Whereas, like, when a format evolves later and, like, you see Delver consistently winning and winning and winning and winning, or, like, Blackheart Zombies consistently winning, then I think you can look at those decks and be like, yeah, this is, like, 100% like where I want to be. This is what I want to do. You can analyze a bunch of different Blackheart Zombies lists to see how they line up. And then I think it's more realistic to take those results more seriously than, like, the results right now in week 1. While they're important, they're not the end-all, be-all.
Alrighty. Thank you for your succinct. Ugh, I've done a terrible thing with the English
You
language.
tried to insult me and you blew it.
What? No, I was gonna say thank you for your succinct summary of this, but I blew my pronunciation of succinct. Anyway, I'm gonna shut her down. I think we've run the gauntlet for this week. It was a fairly light week, so I'm gonna give everyone the opportunity to say their closing statements / thoughts, and then we will be off for this week. So, yeah, I guess we'll go to Steven first, because I think that's how we traditionally do it. Steven, you get to go first.
First, usually? I didn't know that.
I think
Man.
normally you are.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Had fun. I'm looking forward to next week. And, yeah, my cat is, like, asleep on my desk right now, and she is so cute, and you guys cannot see her eat it.
Turn the camera towards it.
Yeah,
Turn
move the
camera.
webcam. Come on. Let's see it.
Anyway, thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, cats.
All right.
Top that, Glenn.
Yeah, I doubt that I can. I got no cats. Yeah, I'm fresh out of any cute animals. So I'll just say I'm not working this weekend, and I'm pretty excited about that. I'll be in San Jose playing in the Team Grand Prix with John Cuvalier and Julian De Los Santos, better known as Gosu and Nobody You Would Know. So I'm looking forward to that. I expect it'll be a lot of fun. I like RGR as a format a fair bit, so I'll be in California soon.
All right, Sud.
Glendog, when you getting in?
Thursday.
All right.
Thursday night.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching, obviously. Love doing the show with my 3 co-hosts here. Always a good time. So thank you guys. All 400, and we had like 450 in the chat today. So thank you guys for taking part in the live recording of this.
And all of them were nice people. That was so
Yeah, which is a nice surprise, actually.
It was good. It's good
Yeah.
this week.
So
You guys
I was
did a
very
good
happy
thing.
about that. As far as things going on in my world, obviously streaming, getting ready for the Pro Tour, streaming Modern like a maniac, with Michael Jacob, going to San Jose, getting in on Friday, do the battles with Glenn. That should be fun. If you want to do a team draft against us, Glenn, let us know.
Sure.
Take all of your packs and everything else that you have. Can't wait to do next week's show. Come back from the Team GP. If win or lose, it's going to be a blast, and I can't wait to talk about it and just how much fun it was. And boy, let's see. The PT's in 2 weeks, so time is of the essence for this testing stuff, and got to do good in it. But I'm gonna have a bunch of fun this weekend. Return to Ravnica seems like a sweet format. I got to do my first drafts on Saturday, and I'm looking forward to going to the GP, and I'm looking forward to saying bye to you guys for watching the show. So bye.
Yeah, I just really quickly wanted to say thank you guys for watching. Thanks for hanging out in chat. It's really fun for us to interact with you guys live. Obviously, nothing against those who watch the video layaway broadcast, but it's more fun live, boys and girls. So
Way
come in and
more fun live.
come in and hang out in the chat. It's awesome interacting with you guys, and yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. So we'll see you guys next Monday.
Bye.
Hi guys.
Bye, Steven's cat.